Welcome to Health Matters. I'm your host, Dr. Lana Marconi. On tonight's show, we're first going to explore some legal issues associated with healthcare, and then we're going to shift into eating behaviors. Kindly welcome my first guest. He has practiced law for over 30 years, immigration attorney Andy Samochek. Welcome, Andy.
Thank you.
Thanks for being here again.
No problem.
So a lot of issues on the table for you tonight.
Okay.
First issue is marijuana. Okay, so medical marijuana is regulated now by Health Canada. Certain companies can only produce it.
Right.
Then we have recreational marijuana. There was a story in 2013 in British Columbia. A girl from college was going to Washington State, and she got stopped. They asked her if she had any marijuana on her, and she didn't, but she admitted to having smoked the drug in the past. Right. She was interrogated for 3 hours, and she had to turn her car back and go back to Canada. She was not allowed into the States. Does it matter if the marijuana is legal, not legal? What's the issue with the marijuana crossing the borders?
Well, first of all, I think you know there are 2 states in the United States that have legalized the use of marijuana for personal use, Washington and Oregon. So in those states, Colorado. So in those states, people can use marijuana freely, and I guess from the point of view of Canadians going down south, in theory, if you go there and you use marijuana, it should be no problem. However, the federal immigration law forbids the use of marijuana. So federally it's illegal, but state-wise it's legal. So the problem is at the border, and what you're doing or what you're saying at the border, like this lady who admitted that she used marijuana in the past, that's an admission of a federal offense, and therefore she was turned back.
But she was claiming, hey, I'm being honest.
Yes.
So what the message is, what, we're not supposed to be honest?
Well, in this case, evidently, that's not the right message.
Okay, so if she had said, I have medical marijuana, would that have had a different outcome?
Yes, it probably would have. See, the thing about immigration law is it's not only if you have had a conviction in the past, but if you admit the facts that might lead to a conviction, that would make you inadmissible in the United States.
But she didn't have a conviction. She had no drugs on her, no prior felony, nothing. And they said that she needed a $600 waiver.
Yes.
What is that?
Well, a waiver is what you apply for to get over inadmissibility, having been found inadmissible. In her case, she admitted the facts to a crime, the crime of using marijuana federally. So now she had to get over that inadmissibility by paying the $600. That is, I think it's $585 is the cost of filing this waiver to get permission to go into the United States, notwithstanding.
But how long does it take to get the waiver? I mean, she was going for a concert that night. Could she get a waiver that night?
No, probably not. But I'll tell you this. If someone has an urgent matter, let's say someone's dying or there's some really serious event that you have to attend to, you can get paroled into the United States, even in circumstances like this lady's, where she has an inadmissibility for entering the United States.
But things like a funeral, not a concert.
Yeah, a funeral, some serious humanitarian reason for entering the United States, it's always available to you. Notwithstanding that you have a criminal offense, even if it's something.
So does that go on her record now in U.S. Customs? Does it now, when they pull up her file, does it say, okay, so and so is now a felon?
Well, yes.
What's the wording?
She wouldn't be called a felon, but
Help me out with the legal language.
That's a misdemeanor, is basically what that is, the admission of using marijuana. But if you admit, or if you are found to have in your possession more than 30 ounces of marijuana, you would be barred for life from going into the United States. So it can be very serious. Any narcotics, anything besides marijuana, is a permanent bar to going into the United States. And in the case of marijuana, 30 grams or less, I mean, less than 30 grams, you still can be admitted to the United States with a waiver.
Wow.
But if you have more than 30 grams, if you, for example, accidentally were caught with marijuana in your possession coming into the U.S., over 30 grams, barred for life from going into the United States.
So the bottom line is then?
if you're going to the United States, don't talk about using marijuana at all. You know,
even if it's medical, just don't even say it.
Yeah, I would not discuss that subject. Anything to do with narcotics is not a good topic to discuss at the border in the United States. It's just not.
But if the agent's looking at you and says, Andy, do you smoke pot? Have you ever smoked pot? And he's looking at, and they're intimidating.
Right.
They can be very intimidating.
Yeah, they can be. Yeah.
And so you're going to look back at him and say.
Well, it's happened before with others who have admitted to using pot, and they got barred from going into the United States. So the best idea is don't use pot or don't smoke. And if you did, try Alzheimer's as an answer. I don't know.
There was, a Canadian psychologist, his name is Andrew Feldmar. He was banned from the U.S. in 2006 after customs officials discovered he used LSD in the 1960s. In the 1960s, Andy, right. For a research paper, he remarked that it was totally unfair. If they stopped everybody who has used an illegal substance, nobody would be allowed into the United States. Right. Health Canada 2011 survey, 11 million people aged 15 or older have admitted to smoking pot in their life. That's 11 million Canadians that would not be allowed to the United States.
Right.
From what you're saying.
Look, normally they don't inquire about past use of drugs. It's very rare that they would ask about it.
Is it the way you look then, maybe? You're going to a concert?
Well, no. I mean, if you look like you're posing a danger, like maybe you're related to Osama bin Laden, or you got some kind of, plan that you're going to be bombing someone or something, no doubt you're going to be pulled off to the side and questioned. And they may go into drugs as one area of questioning. But, this small use of marijuana and stuff like that, it's not high up on the radar screen in U.S. immigration matters. Mm-hmm. It's something that, they're going to ignore in most instances.
Okay, here's
this LSD, though, that's like a permanent bar.
Is it?
Yeah, because it's not marijuana.
I don't know what happened to him, the result of that. But okay, here's something for you. Okay. There's a Toronto-based immigration lawyer, this was in the newspaper, Henry Chang, said that it's possible politicians such as Rob Ford and Justin Trudeau, who have openly spoken about pot, could run into issues crossing the border. Do you agree, or do high-profile people have special privileges, Andy?
Henry Chang is a leading immigration lawyer.
So you know Henry Chang.
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I picked the right guy.
Oh, yeah. No, he's an authority. And he's right. It could very well be that these people could be barred from going to the United States, but they're not going to be barred.
Hold that thought, Andy. We're going to go to a break right now. We'll be right back. Here's an interesting food fact. In Asian countries, people eat up to 90 times more soy food, non-GMO, of course, than North Americans eat. And prostate cancer is far less common in those countries. Eat well, be well. Welcome back to Health Matters. I'm joined by the amazing immigration attorney, Andy Semyuchek. Okay, so we're going to talk about drinking and driving.
Great.
Here's some stats for you. In Ontario, almost 25% of all fatalities are due to drunk driving. In 2012, 5 million Canadians, listen to this, age 12 and over reported heavy drinking. That's 5 or more drinks, like 12 years old. 4% of the population over the age of 15 are dependent on alcohol, and a heavy drinker is 3 times more likely to die in a traffic accident. So clearly, alcoholism is a huge issue in Ontario, Canada, and even the United States. When you have a DUI on your record, right, or what happens when you want to cross a border?
Okay, well, Canada is more serious about DUIs, impaired driving, than the United States is. So, for example, if I have a DUI in Canada, I can go one DUI. I can go into the United States, no problem. If I have more than one DUI, then I need a waiver to get into the United States. In Canada, if someone wants to come to Canada with one DUI, although there's no regulation involved, there's a policy that they will allow a person with one DUI to come into Canada. And it was developed because there were a lot of hunters from New York and places like that who wanted to go up hunting and fishing.
So this is for the boys. Yeah. This is for the boys. What about the women who want to like come up and do something special? Like we don't hunt, but.
Well, listen, you have to start somewhere. So they started with the boys who go hunting and fishing. But the policy now is anybody, men or women, if you have just one, in Canada, they'll let you in. let you in. That is to say, you have to fill in a form. You don't pay for a waiver, but you'll be allowed in. If you have more than one, then you're into this tricky part of getting a Canadian waiver. It's called the temporary resident permit, which is a real pain because you have to go through the consulate and it could take like 8 or 9 months to get the thing.
Wow. Okay,
Yeah.
So bottom line again,
Don't drink and drive.
drink and drive.
Yeah.
Drink responsibly.
Yeah.
So if someone has a DUI on their record,
Right.
how does that show up at the customs office? What's
well,
the link?
Well, the RCMP in Canada have the CPIC database, which is shared with the American FBI, which is shared with the Department of Homeland Security, which is shared with U.S. Customs and Border Protection. So if you're arrested for a DUI, that's going to be on that CPIC and therefore on the when they take your passport and put it through the computer, it's going to come up on the screen.
It shows up right away.
Yeah.
So if they ask you if you've had a DUI, they already know the answer to that, but they want you to be honest in that case.
Correct.
That's when you would be honest.
See, that's their big strength, is you don't know what's on their computer, and when they're looking on the screen, you don't know what's there. So that's the way they test your honesty, and they'll ask you difficult questions. They won't ask you easy questions. They'll ask you such as, have you ever been convicted for a DUI? Of course, you don't want to admit it, but you have to. If you have to be honest with them in order to go across the border.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, let's talk about OHIP coverage for people going south. And the reason why I ask that is because here, like in the U.S., one visit to the ER is $1,200, a broken foot is $16,000, and a cancer treatment is $30,000. So we're talking about big money if something happens to you, to your health, if you're in the United States. OHIP.
Okay, the deal is this. If you're a Canadian, you're in the United States, you cannot be outside of Ontario, because we're talking about OHIP, for more than 153 days in any calendar year. If you are, you're no longer eligible for OHIP. So any snowbird that's going down to Florida, if they stay longer than 153 days in a calendar year, trouble. There's one exception, and that's if perhaps you're working in the United States, and in that case, you have to notify OHIP in advance that you're leaving in writing, and they can give you up to 2 years exception or exemption from being ineligible for OHIP in those circumstances. But generally, all you have to remember is 153 days in one calendar year. That's the maximum you can be outside. Wow.
There was a story in the paper a while ago about a couple. It was in the winter. They were coming from Detroit, driving to Windsor, and they lost control of the SUV because it was wintertime. She ended up crawling out of the vehicle, and he was broken ribs, broken pelvis, like lacerated kidney, spleen, liver, his tailbone. They had OHIP, auto insurance, and insurance from their work. Their bill in the U.S. was $70,000 when the wife realized that auto insurance doesn't cover anything. And good luck trying to collect from OHIP right now. Bills are collecting. Their bill was over $300,000 by the end of it, but what price can you put on a life, right? Well, and they ended up, it took 6 years for them to end up closing the case where they got the money from OHIP and their insurance from work. But still, collectors were calling.
See, the big thing is if you go down to the U.S. and you think it's all, very easy and you might go to a hospital or whatever, the thing is when you come back to Canada, they ask, in the last 6 months, have you been in any hospitals?
Really?
Oh, yeah. And
because they have that information.
Well, they may not have it, but they'll ask here in the hospitals, have you been in any hospitals while you were away? If you've been away, they'll find out where have you been in the United States, have you been in any hospital? And that starts the train in terms of, are you going to get coverage in Ontario? And
that triggers OHIP.
Do you abide by the rules that OHIP has? It's touchy. I know in my case I had trouble like that.
Wow. Okay, so this couple now has out-of-country medical insurance that covers up to $5 million, right? Pretty smart. Obamacare, and how does that affect would-be immigrants? Here's a question. My wife and I will soon get our green cards. Will we qualify for Obamacare? My wife and I are Canadian citizens. We have a winter home in Florida and hope to move there permanently soon.
Okay.
What's the deal?
Okay, I'm not an expert in this field. You're probably going to have to ask healthcare experts. But generally, if you have status, legal status, you should be eligible for Obamacare. So therefore, I think the general answer would be yes, provided you have legal status. In this case, they have green cards, so they would be eligible.
They would be.
Yeah.
Andy, less than a minute left. I want to talk about you.
Okay.
You're an author. You write books.
Yes.
What did you write?
Well, one is The Young Professional. It's a career guidebook for young people going into the professions, and it's available through Amazon.com. There's another one, it's called A Promise Kept, and it's a book about the immigrant experience, also available through Amazon.com.
Interesting. And just quickly, what tips do you have for people who have immigration questions?
Well, call me or any immigration attorney, especially if you're going to the U.S., a U.S. immigration attorney.
But you're also licensed in the United States, so that's the advantage of hiring you, because you know the laws both in Canada and in the United States.
Correct. And
right?
I work with Pace Law Firm if anybody
Pace Law Firm.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Andy. Loved having you. Come back again. We'll be back more on health matters and a look at eating behaviors. Come on back. Vegetables are packed with phytochemicals, nutrients that both cell health and protect against cancer. There are many different phytochemicals, and the best way to get a variety of them is to eat different colored veggies.